Good evening all. I'm Aditi Lama with the Wednesday night edition of South Asian News. Welcome to Vision of Asia, voice of our community. We are coming to you from our studio in New York City. Here's what's happening tonight in the coronavirus pandemic. Nearly 1.2 million deaths from the novel virus globally tonight, with more than 44 million cases in the world. Europe is coming close to the brink as several countries report new daily COVID-19 cases, and leaders are starting to take drastic steps to contain the spread of coronavirus, and fears are rising over the potential of overwhelmed hospitals and healthcare systems. According to the World Health Organization, almost 3 million cases of coronavirus have been reported worldwide in the past 7 days, setting a global record. Here in the United States, we are looking at nearly 8.8 million cases of COVID-19 with more than 227,000 deaths. Yesterday marked the third consecutive day the United States set record high of average daily COVID-19 cases, hitting an all-time high record of more than 71,000 cases. 3 U.S. states have set record for average daily high of COVID deaths, states Nebraska, Tennessee, and Wyoming. In New Jersey, our neighboring state, the city of Newark is under new restrictions following COVID-19 spread in the area, requiring all non-essential businesses to close at 8 p.m. Today, nation's leading health expert, Dr. Anthony Fauci, stated that it could be till year 2022 before we start having some semblance of normality. Again, we'd like to remind all our viewers to make sure and practice social distancing, wash your hands frequently, and most importantly, wear a mask. It is our biggest weapon currently against this coronavirus, and we are only now 6 days away from the November 3rd presidential elections. And again, would like to remind all eligible registered voters to make sure and cast your vote this year. It's important more than ever to advocate your voice, your perspective by casting this vote. So make sure you have a plan to vote this year. Visit iwillvote.com or vote.org for more information. With that, let's begin tonight's segment covering much on COVID-19 crisis and elections 2020. Here are the headlines. Dr. Purvi Parikh addresses coronavirus pandemic updates and measures, New York City. Post-presidential debate virtual press conference by Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders for Biden-Harris. Veteran journalist Rohit Vyas urges South Asian Americans to vote elections 2020, New Jersey. A lot more on the other side of the break. Stay with us in Vision of Asia, voice of the community. We'll be right back. And welcome back. I'm Aditi Lama, and this is Vision of Asia, Wednesday night episode of South Asian News. Looking now at the coronavirus updates and measures, cases are rising across the nation, setting record for daily new cases and death. Today, nation's leading expert Dr. Anthony Fauci said that the United States is not in a good place with these rising cases nationwide, and also stated that as we continue into the cool months of fall and soon the cold months of the winter, they're starting to see something going in the wrong direction. He also said that masks in the U.S. have almost become a political statement in that it has been painful to witness political divisiveness centered around a public health issue. Meanwhile, the U.S. government has agreed to pay $375 million to Eli Lilly for 300,000 doses of its experimental COVID-19 antibody treatment, a drug similar to a treatment that President Donald Trump received. Eyes continue to be on the much-awaited vaccine for coronavirus. So what is causing this surge, and how should we analyze and respond? We spoke with health expert Dr. Purvi Parikh. Urging all to mask up, here's what Dr. Purvi Parikh shared with us on coronavirus updates. Cases that are surging across the nation. The Midwest is getting really badly hit, but we're also seeing surges in the Northeast, which is concerning a lot of us living in New York, New Jersey, and other states. Why are we having this surge right now? Why can the Midwest control or contain the spread?
So there's a few things going on. All of these respiratory viruses, COVID-19, flu, they spread more in the winter months because as it gets colder, people spend more time indoors. And so inside in enclosed areas, unfortunately, the virus spreads more quickly. If you remember, even COVID-19 emerged even during the winter time last year. So basically, that's the biggest issue with the Midwest states, because many of them are already experiencing experiencing the beginning of winter. And then in tri-state, it's similar. I mean, it is starting to get chillier, but also I think, people have to be very careful because as we let our guard down and have more indoor gatherings, the cases will go up, especially as we move towards the holidays. Dr. Anthony Fauci is actually recommending not traveling or having large family gatherings for Thanksgiving or Christmas or even Diwali because it can be dangerous.
Yes, definitely. If I was to ask who or what is the major reason behind this surge, what would you say? Who has the responsibility?
Right. So, I think it's a combination of things. All of us have a big responsibility because, we're the ones who have the most control over our actions. So that responsibility includes, wearing masks, social distancing, not having or attending large gatherings, especially now that more things are happening indoors where we know the virus can spread. So I think number one responsibility starts with all of us. We're all accountable. But then secondly, government officials do need to step in and even think about things such as mask mandates, even for the whole country as we move towards colder months. Yes. I know other countries, as they're seeing their cases go up, already announced mandates. Like Russia announced a mask mandate for the whole country. So we may have to do strict measures like that.
Do you think perhaps certain areas should be shut down? France has just gone into a nationwide lockdown. I'm trying to understand with the 71,000 average daily new cases that were reported today, where are we heading towards?
Right. I mean, nobody wants a lockdown, because we know that our economy suffers, people lose jobs. It's not good for mental health, but, we might have to do temporary lockdowns, maybe not of entire areas, but of the clusters or the hotspots. So, for example, in New York City, what we're doing now, and in New York State, Cuomo is targeting regions where there's hotspots, where the cases are going up, rather than shutting down entire regions like we did before in March or April. So hopefully that way we can control the spread without having a very large lockdown. But if we can't get ahead of it, we might be heading for the larger scale lockdowns, unfortunately, again, which I hope is not the case.
There was also a prediction today by one of the health experts saying that we may see 100,000 new cases on the daily average of 7 days that we're talking about. Do you see that happening?
It could be. I mean, we're already seeing more daily cases per day than even at the start of the pandemic, so they are going up and they've been steadily going up the last week or two. So it is a reality that we have to, come to terms with. And it's even more reason that we really need individuals to take this seriously and local governments also to take it seriously.
Are you perhaps worried that New York City may become the epicenter again? I guess we're all worried about that.
Right. It's definitely a worry. It was very traumatic, being in New York City in the tri-state area during March, April, May. But, interestingly enough, currently New York City is in a better position than most of the country. Luckily, even though there are a few hotspots in Brooklyn and Queens, overall, the city has maintained a relatively low infection rate, I think of less than 2%. Hopefully, if we stay under that rate or even get lower, we can continue to do well. But now it looks like other places are slowly becoming epicenters. So I think at least New York City has done a good job of keeping it under control. But, nobody knows what the future holds.
Well, looking at politics now, we have highlights from recently held virtual conference presented by Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders for Biden and Harris. Also known as APIs for Biden-Harris, this is a grassroots community of affinity groups working together to support the Biden-Harris ticket for the presidential elections. At the virtual press conference, members of Congress were joined by DNC API caucus chair and representatives of more than 14 APIs for Biden and Harris to deliver a message for a better future, diversity, and inclusion. The purpose of the post-debate presidential press conference was to react to the former Vice President Joe Biden's final debate and make the final case why APIs should vote for the Biden-Harris ticket this election cycle. Here are representatives from South Asians for Biden, Pakistanis for Biden, and Sikh Americans for Biden sharing issues that impact the Asian American voice in the nation, from economy to immigration to hate crime, discrimination, women's rights, and much more.
The South Asian community is 5 million strong. We are an incredibly diverse community with no unifying language, faith, or condition. Our community is not a monolith. We hail from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Afghanistan, and the Maldives. Some segments of our community are affluent, while others are struggling to make ends meet. We are doctors, lawyers, engineers, and business owners, but we are also essential transportation workers, small business owners, teachers, law enforcement personnel, activists, and working minimum wage jobs. And we South Asians owe our existence in America to a multitude of laws and policies. For many, it is due to acts of Congress, the H-1B visa worker program, and chain migration that allow us to be here and build a life here. But there are others who owe their presence in America to programs like the Refugee Program, the Temporary Protective Status Program, President Reagan's Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986, while some 5,000 South Asians receive DACA protections and a growing segment are living in the shadows. But as diverse as we are as South Asians, we are united for electing Vice President Biden and Senator Kamala Harris. The South Asian community is moved by Vice President Biden's decency, his life story, the strength and resilience he exudes. We appreciate his honesty, his forthrightness, and his dedication to public service. And we are so moved by the fact that Senator Harris is the first Indian American and Black woman to serve as a vice presidential nominee. Senator Harris is a trailblazer who has devoted her life to justice and equality. And she knows what it's like to have a parent who's belittled and thought of as less than because of her accent. Many of us know that experience. But more than just their personal attributes, we stand with Vice President Biden and Senator Harris because they respect our immigrant community. They see our diversity as a strength, not as a weakness.
Pakistani Americans are a vibrant community and an integral part of the South Asian diaspora within the US that have consistently called for strong, progressive leadership on all levels of government, especially now in the wake of the historic Biden-Harris ticket. In 2015, Vice President Biden was actually awarded the Hilal-e-Pakistan, Pakistan's top civilian award, for the role he played in contributing to democracy and social economic development in Pakistan. Biden has also pledged to end the Muslim ban upon coming into office, and he actually referenced it again in last night's debate. In our faith, Muslims believe heaven lies at the feet of their mother. For Trump to respond with a simple good in the final debate when Biden called out his administration for being responsible for 500 plus immigrant children being separated at the border goes against everything that not only our tradition, but what our American values and traditions stand for. What our community and our nation needs are candidates who exemplify the qualities of leadership. And we believe Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are the natural leaders who will represent all citizens of the United States, all immigrant communities, and deliver our nation through the unprecedented challenges we face in the absence of leadership. Our council believes the diverse experiences and commitment to fair leadership modeled by the candidates on this ticket speaks to the experiences of the Pakistani American immigrant community across the nation. And to reach our objectives, we have created an engaging digital campaign and built a strong virtual presence within the Pakistani American community by collaborating with leaders in strategic states, by mobilizing through virtual platforms and strategic WhatsApp collaborations with over 800 Pakistani Americans from key battleground states.
We have seen bullying against Sikh American students in schools rise more than 200% under the Trump administration. We have seen hate crimes against our turban-donning brothers and sisters rise multiple fold. We have seen so many of our uncles and aunties, small businesses struggle and even collapse under what has been a horrendous response to the coronavirus. We have seen so many of our Sikhs caged in abhorrent conditions in ICE detention centers. And we have seen our president deny the science behind why our homeland, Sarda Punjab, is no longer the land of five rivers. And just last night, as was mentioned by Deepa, we heard our sitting president call our homeland The land in which our ancestors have fought and lived, have cultivated farms and raised families, our families. He called it filthy. And that's why we formed our organization, Sikh Americans for Biden, to give Sikh Americans a unique voice on a campaign for one of the first times in the history of a major presidential election, and elevate the voices of our siblings across the country. Over the past few months, we have phone banked to Sikhs across battleground states, including Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, and Texas. We've hosted a number of different events on issues ranging from anti-Sikh discrimination to international human rights and immigration reform. We've heard from our community members, including Valerie Kaur, Mayor Balla, Simranjit Singh, and so many others, all telling us the same thing. Our voice does matter. We owe it to our parents who left everything they knew to come here and provide us with a better life, to choose the right candidate. The candidate that will support affordable healthcare, who will protect our gurdwaras, who will support small business stimulation, who will support affordable healthcare for our parents and our aging community members, who will support reasonable religious accommodations to prevent workplace discrimination. That candidate is undeniably Vice President Biden and Senator Harris. And we need you to vote as well, because quite literally, our lives depend on it. Waheguru Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
It's time for another short break. Stay with us in Vision of Asia, Voice of the Community. We'll be right back. And welcome back. This is Vision of Asia, the South Asian news segment, and I am Aditi Lamba. Only 6 days left till November 3rd presidential elections, and more than 71 million Americans have already cast their vote ballots, which is now more than half the votes that were cast in the 2016 presidential elections. Today, President Trump held 2 rallies in Arizona, while former Vice President and Democratic nominee Joe Biden delivered remarks on the coronavirus pandemic. In his remarks, former Vice President Joe Biden urged all to wear masks due to the upward slope of confirmed cases of COVID-19, and also talked about the actions needed to turn it around when looking at the virus. He also criticized the current administration and President Donald Trump for mishandling of the pandemic and said that he knows all too well how it feels to lose a loved one. So what's at stake here, and what states would determine the next president of the United States? We spoke with veteran journalist and political commentator Mr. Rohit Vyas. Showing full faith in election protection and security, here's what Mr. Vyas shared with us on understanding elections 2020 and the importance of voting. Who, according to you, are the most important voters in this election?
I think women, I think the younger generation, and I think the older generation too. A lot of the older folks see their Medicare, their retirement, Medicaid, etc. Possibly, may be threatened by either of them. They want to know what's going to happen, and so they're listening very carefully, going out there very carefully to see what's going on in this election. The younger generation, for them, a lot is at stake, a lot. Okay, and especially after the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court, I suspect this is going to play into the thinking of a lot of young voters as to what they think their future is going to be like. Because, for instance, there are a lot of young people who are not yet settled in their careers. They've been struggling, they've come out of college, and for some reason, this generation, the millennials, have been in quite a bit of a struggle to have a good career going forward, to save enough money, to have families, to buy their own homes, etc., etc. Contrary to what you might be hearing, where a lot of them are getting great jobs with great salaries, but a vast majority of them are still struggling. And I think they're the ones who are going to say, hey, is this really good for us? Is the Republican thinking, is Trumpism good for us? Is Joe Biden going to be good for us? I'm sure they're going to be thinking about it very carefully. Very crucial segment. Women's rights. Even though another woman has been nominated to the Supreme Court and is now a sitting judge on the Supreme Court. Does she really care about abortion? Roe versus Wade, is that going to be reversed? A lot of these issues. So women and children, but to a large extent seniors as well. Important categories of voters.
I have one last question for you, and that would be, in case anyone is choosing to not vote, which we saw a lot in 2016 happen, what do you say to them?
And you know something? that's actually happening. I've had people tell me, you know what? And I go out there with my ear to the ground because I'm a journalist. I like to hear what people say so I can come to some kind of conclusion as to what's happening. I meet a lot of ordinary people wherever I go. I try to go to the grocery store, talk to people, the coffee shop, okay, the restaurants, and I'll hear people get into a discussion just to get their feedback. I have heard a lot of people, unfortunately, say they're not going to bother voting. And then, I'm not supposed to give my opinion, but I do in circumstances like that. And I say, wait a minute. That is the most valuable thing you can do in a democracy is turn out and vote. Even if you think it's not going to count, go. You must go and vote because every single vote does count. I think I gave you the example of Florida several years ago when George W. Bush was running against Al Gore, and it was Florida that decided that, and it was just a few votes here and there where they had to check out the impressions on the paper ballots and so on and so forth to decide that election. And it's so critical. So those who think they don't need to vote, they're so dead wrong. And they should not complain about anything. But please, and they should never be disgusted by politics. Politics is what it is. It's politics. But you do have that right. Viewers, all of you who are U.S. citizens, you have that right. You must vote. Everybody must vote. It's too important a thing. And if you look at so many parts of the world, they don't have that right.
Right.
It's a privilege to be able to vote and to exercise your franchise of who you think should lead. And it counts. It just counts.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's so important for everyone to go out and vote as well. We have to get our voices counted this year.
Sure.
And, as they say, it doesn't matter if your state is leaning blue or red. If people don't come out to vote, anything can happen. So go and make sure your voice is heard.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. Your affiliation doesn't matter. Just go ahead and vote, Go ahead, do it, for whoever. You want to vote for Trump? Do so. You want to vote for Biden? Do so. You want to vote for somebody else? Write in their names? Do so. Right. But vote.
Yes,
yeah.
That's so important. Well, I truly appreciate you for giving us your time here with ITV Gold. I would love for you to give one last message.
And that's it. Again, the same thing I'm emphasizing, everybody. Don't be disheartened. This is the United States of America. And actually look at it in a positive light. This is how democracy works. Okay, you've had a few, we've weathered some rough weather right now, some rough patches here and there. But in the end, I think it's going to be good. I think the American people will speak with a strong voice, a united voice. And I think, as Milton said, John Milton said in Paradise Lost, all is not lost. And I think the hope should be there. Keep that candle burning. Things will be fine.
And a community shout out tonight for Dr. Hetal Gore, who hosted a breast cancer awareness walk in Paramus, New Jersey. The event was held in honor of October being the Breast Cancer Awareness Month, aimed at raising awareness of early screenings and tests while also raising funds for cancer research, prevention, diagnosis, treatment, and care. Well, this wraps up our show for the night. Remember to send us your suggestions and get your voices and organizations on our show. Email us on events@itvgold.com or follow us on Facebook @itvgold. You can also subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch many of our popular shows for free. Thank you for joining us tonight from Queens, New York. This is Vision of Asia, and I am Lati Lamba. Please go and vote.